Alrighty, so Leigh. Do I call you Leigh or should I just call you PoliticsGirl?
You can say I go as PoliticsGirl, but honestly, my name is Leigh. I wrote my book under Leigh McGowan, and I think it's important that I have an actual name, if I'm going to be honest.
There you go. Well, there you go. So look, there's a lot to talk about. The hour goes by quickly here on Mea Culpa. I want to start with something that is right now just at the top of the headlines. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created in response to the 2008 financial crisis to basically protect you and me, consumers, from predatory lending. It is now being dismantled by this Trump administration. So my question to you is, what does this mean for everyday Americans, especially in light of rising credit card debt and aggressive banking practices? Who stands to benefit from gutting this watchdog agency, and why dismantle it?
Well, I think you answered your question in your question. If you had any curiosity about who this administration works for, if you thought, okay, I voted for these people because they're going to make life easier for me, they're going to make things cheaper for me, they're going to take care of me, I think the gutting of the Consumer Protection Bureau is exactly what anyone that was sort of fighting against this administration was trying to tell you, which is that these people don't care about you. And to take in a group that their whole job is to look out for the American people. Their whole job is to make sure your credit card company can't charge you secret, interest rates, that you can't be taken advantage of by buying some car that was a full lemon. That, say, in the Elon Musk case, because he seems to be going after companies that go after him, your car can't just catch on fire or automatically drive you into traffic. That the consumers, the American citizens, are protected by the government, which in many ways is what the government is supposed to do. They're supposed to look after their citizens. And this is a great example of something that was created fundamentally to look after the American people. And it's one of the first things that they came after, because it only benefits the people who are trying to take advantage of the American people, the people that are trying to rip us off. I mean, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has returned over $2 billion into American people's pockets.
21
billion. Okay, I am
that they have
times
returned
10
to
short
the
on
American
that.
people.
Yeah,
$21 billion to the American people. Do you know how many people I used to know many years ago that would turn around and say with their credit card debt, it was like 24%. But if you didn't pay it off, somehow or another, they were never able to catch up and they got themselves into real financial problems. And the hidden fees and then the default fees on top of fees, which without the CFPB, they didn't even have to disclose.
Yeah, but it's not even people that we might have known. I don't think that there is a American listening to this right now that doesn't know what it's like to say, I couldn't afford this because we've been set up this society that is a capitalistic society where we stopped earning enough money to live the way we were told we could live, to afford school, to afford housing, to afford food, to afford our families, to afford cars. So we put it on credit because that's what it was created for. But then the credit card companies have continually taken advantage of us, raising the interest rates, adding more fees, doing more things to us. So we end up in this kind of perpetual debt. And I don't think that there's anyone that doesn't understand that isn't like, oh God, I remember when I was this much in debt. I've done it myself, where all we were doing was between a disease I had, trying to pay for our medical bills, our son's life, and just trying to pay our rent and bills. We were like, okay, well, I guess we'll put it on a card. And then you get to your point where you're like, I'm paying so much more a month just in interest, not even in the debt itself. And I think that's what a lot of the kids and people who tried to get higher education, who were also told this will be the thing that will help get you out of debt. This will be the thing that moves you up. This is the bootstraps you need to pull yourself up as a nation. They found the same thing, that their student debt loans were then these extraordinary interest rates that they could never get out of, never declare bankruptcy. They were ending up paying 4-10 times more than the original loan. And that is it's predatory. And I think that's the thing. This group that was created by Elizabeth Warren, we should probably point out, was created in order for things not to be so predatory for the American public. And the Trump administration has come in and said, be as predatory as you want. Take as much as you want from these people because we couldn't care less about them.
I mean, think about it. Anybody who went to college it's amazing because anytime that you're in college, literally, you're a freshman in college, all right? Whether you're paying for education yourself, your family is paying for it, or whether you're on student loan, or whether it's partial scholarship, whatever it might be. No matter what your income is, and generally most kids' income when they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior in college is very limited. Every single credit card company hits you up. All they want you to do is take out a credit card. Oh, start building your debt. No, the problem is then you go to a bar or you go to a restaurant, and at the end of the month, you turn around and you're like, I'm in trouble here, right? I got to ask either family member for help or I got to go get a job. And then you don't end up paying it off. And then it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. It's really terrible. So
no, and it goes back to it goes back to predatory, right? Like I signed up for my first credit card when I was in high school because my dad wanted me to learn credit. But most of my friends signed up for their credit cards on campus in the first week of college because all the credit card companies were there, like you said. And they're there to basically say, look, here's some free money for you guys that are, don't have it. And you just set yourself up for a lifetime of trouble.
Yeah, even if you needed books. So look, it doesn't stop there, right? More than 40,000 federal workers have resigned. Imagine that. More than 40,000 in just the past couple of days, citing political interference, low morale, concerns over government dysfunction. What do you think are going to be the long-term consequences of this brain drain? I mean, how might this impact key agencies like FEMA, which they're also dismantling, the IRS, and most importantly, the DOJ?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is all Project 2025, right? This is all the plan. This is what they tried to do in the first Trump administration with their Schedule F. And the idea is to purge the federal government, all layers of the federal government. And this isn't just people that live in Washington, D.C. This is people that live all over the country that have jobs with the federal government, and replace these career civil servants, not the deep state, not people that work for Democrats, but people that have been in these jobs through Republican and Democratic administrations for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, just doing their job of keeping the government running, no matter what department they live in and they work in. And they're trying to purge them so that they can fill those spaces with people that will do whatever they are told whenever they are told. Because one of the things that held back the administration the last time they were in power was the amount of just career bureaucrats that were like, actually, that's not legal. Actually, we can't do that. Actually, that's not allowed. People that knew the rules because they'd been there, that understood, that weren't working for Republicans or Democrats, that were working for the American people, that had, committed to the Constitution, committed to the rule of law. And they want those people gone. I mean, to be honest, 40,000 people resigning, they sent out a letter to 2.2 million people asking them to resign.
Just the beginning.
Can you imagine gutting any organization, I think of Twitter, by 85%, just like, see you later. And then who's going to run it? And part of this is the Republican long-term plan to show that government doesn't work. And you say, look, we told you government's the problem. We told you government doesn't work. And look how inefficient it is. And look, you can't get your Social Security check. And look, you didn't get your Medicare check. And your grandmother didn't get her Meals on Wheels. We told you the government doesn't work. You should allow us to privatize everything. And really, it's them who are sabotaging the government. Now, this, in many ways, goes beyond that. This is beyond the regular Republican plan to show you government doesn't work so they can privatize and make money from things that would be government organizations, like everything from the post office to medicine. But this is about loyalty. This is about creating a way for a dictator to flourish, where there is no one left that says no, much like if you lived in Hungary or Russia. If someone stands up to the leader, they're gone. If they stand up to the leader and they had some authority, they get window cancer, and fall out a window somewhere. This is kind of what we're setting ourselves up for by getting rid of people whose job it is to just fundamentally make sure your checks get to you, to make sure you get your tax refund, that make sure if there's a natural disaster, like you said with FEMA, somebody shows up to help you. That's what the government is supposed to be there to do, to help the American people. It is a contract. We pay taxes for protection and for roads and services and that kind of thing. And they take care of us. It's a contract. And what they're saying is, we don't care what you guys need. We're going to gut all of these industries and we're going to take everything for ourselves. And I think that's the thing, Michael, I'm going through these days. We're 3 weeks into this new administration, and every day I'm going through the day with my teeth clenched, like my jaw hurts, because I think that for anyone who understands what is really happening here, any of us who spent well over the past year trying to explain to people what would going to happen if we put these people back in charge again, it's actually happening. And it's very difficult because there's still people that just don't get it, that refuse to see it, that won't fight back to it. I just did a rant.
No, they're not it's not that they're not fighting back. They're actually inciting it. They are accepting it, owning it, and loving it. And when you try to engage them in conversation, I'm not talking about people who are uneducated. I'm talking about educated individuals, like Ivy League educated, and they think this is the greatest shit on the planet, including, I had a whole argument the other day with a buddy of mine, 25% tariffs now on steel and aluminum imports. I tried to explain to him, and he should understand this because he's in finance, that tariffs don't work. And we saw that in 2018, right? Trump's unilateral move now to impose these 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports, it's already rattling the markets, forgetting about angering our key U.S. allies. How will this affect American industries like the auto manufacturers and construction, which depend on these imports? You have Michigan, which, by the way, swing state, ended up voting for him. Are we looking at a repeat of Trump's 2018 tariff blunder that cost Americans jobs and just an enormous amount of money?
Of course we are. We're looking at that on steroids. I think the thing is that it's not just the automotive industry and the construction industry. It's the airline industry. It's the military industrial complex. We use all of these, things for all of those industries. We are systematically disseminating destruction. It's like we put a virus into the American system and we're letting it eat us alive, and no one is doing anything about it. This is, of course, the tariffs are going to be a complete disaster. But what Trump tends to do, and at least what he did in the last administration, and I think this is going to be 10 times worse because he's now surrounded by people who are smarter, know better, and have bigger plans than he does, is you make a huge mistake, then people are outraged. Then you use taxpayer dollars to try and fix it. He did this last time with tariffs that affected our soybean industry and our American farmers, right? Then he gave them all huge tax credits to make up for the money he lost them during his tariffs. But we pay for that. So we saved zero money. We made zero difference to our foreign policy. And all we did was piss off people and waste American dollars. And I think we're going to do that over and over and over again. And it's up to people who understand these industries. I'm curious to know, when you're talking to people and they think this is the greatest thing ever, who are these people that think this is the greatest thing ever? Because any logical person, anyone that understands industry, that understands the market, that understands how tariffs work, understand this is not a good idea. So who are these people that you're speaking to?
So the guy that I was speaking to is actually a doctor, right? And he's very, very, very successful surgeon. And I'm sitting there, I'm saying to him, you've got to be shitting me. Let me be very clear about something. In 2018, Trump had imposed a series of aluminum and steel tariffs, for example, on Canada. And it didn't work because Canada provides us with an enormous amount of rolled steel. And who uses that rolled steel? Coca-Cola Bottling Company and Pepsi Cola, right? And so instead of, let's say, it costing 25 cents to manufacture, right, a can of soda, and it gets sold at, say, 50 cents, and that's why they charge us $1 a can, so everybody's making their money. You couldn't even get it anymore because Canada was selling the the aluminum to China or to to Russia or whoever. They don't care. They don't need to sell it only to America. They can sell it to Mexico. They truly don't care. You put it on a ship, it doesn't matter to where it ends up as long as they're getting paid. And so what did Trump do? He ultimately withdrew the tariff. He gave them special dispensation, right? He signed his name onto some order giving them dispensation. This is the problem. All of those tariffs that he tried to impose in his first administration, they were all basically pulled and given a special dispensation that it didn't apply to them. But, it doesn't just stop with the nonsensical speech on tariffs and how it's not the American consumer that's going to pay, it's going to be the foreign countries. Talk about other crazy comments. Trump just said that resolving the Gaza crisis is really merely just a real estate deal, and that he could negotiate it like a hotel purchase. What do you think this reveals about his fundamental misunderstanding of international conflict and diplomacy? And how do you think that these comments compare to previous U.S. presidents and the way that they approached Middle East peace efforts?
Yeah. Well, listen, Michael, you worked with Donald Trump. You understand that he likes to speak about the things he thinks he knows about, right? So real estate to him is something he wants to talk about because he feels like he's an expert there, which I would argue he is not. I would argue he's not even a particularly great businessman based on the amount of bankruptcies he's had. I would argue that he has no clue about the Middle East policies. There are people that spend their entire lives researching, studying, understanding Middle East crises, policies, and up until now, the American position has always been, let's attempt to get ourselves somewhere near a two-state solution. Israel is obviously a very important ally to America based on the weapons we have alone in that country. And that's a very important relationship that can't be overlooked. However, gutting Gaza that's already been decimated and talking about owning it and putting American soldiers there, American boots on ground, so that we can level the place to make it the beautiful, Riviera of the Middle East is so incredibly tone deaf and expensive. I mean, that's the thing I'm like, what is he talking about? We can't afford to feed American school children, but we're going to build the Riviera of the Middle East in Gaza. Like, first of all, none of the neighboring countries want that. Saudi Arabia doesn't want that. The only person that wants that is Netanyahu and Trump himself and maybe the Trump family, because they're all going to benefit from it. It feels kleptocratic. It feels self-dealing. It feels completely against human rights and human and American policy when it comes to the Middle East. And where are all these Palestinians supposed to go? This idea that we'll just sort of send them away and they can find new places to live is so grossly against what America is supposed to stand for as the good guy in the world. And I think about people that voted for Jill Stein and people that just couldn't vote for Joe Biden because he was Genocide Joe. And I'm like, what did you think was going to happen from the guy that did the Muslim ban? What did you think was going to happen from the guy that was 100% in bed with Benjamin Netanyahu? What do you think was going to happen from the guy that made the decisions to not release the hostages at his resort in Mar-a-Lago when Benjamin Netanyahu was there with him? This was always going to be the way it was going to play out. It is gross. It will be terribly mismanaged. American lives will probably be lost if we send American soldiers over there. But it just shows how little Trump understands about so much that has to do with American policy.
So let me say this to you, because you're right. I know Trump pretty much better than anybody out
yes,
there.
You understand.
As well as his own children. I saat with him for almost a decade and a half. So yeah, I picked it all up. Here's what he's saying. Okay, Michael, well, you asked Leigh. Previous U.S. presidents, their approach to Middle Eastern peace efforts have failed. And failed miserably. If in fact it didn't fail, October never would have taken place. right? Where they went after and they grabbed hostages and they slaughtered, all those young people and the party goers at that festival. This has been going on now for thousands of years. There's a theocracy that is just in conflict, and there will never be peace unless we do it my way.
But this isn't
what
peace.
Would you say?
I would say this isn't peace. How is this peace? This is saying, I choose which side wins. It's the same way he looks at the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I will stop that war, and he will stop that war by giving Russia exactly what they want, which is Ukraine. I can stop any war by giving one side everything that they want. That's not creating peace.
But how do you stop? Sure, but how do you stop Hamas? Hamas is, while it's a terrorist organization, they're no different than Hezbollah. They're no different than ISIS, ISIL, Al Qaeda. They have a theocracy, which he just doesn't seem to either understand or want to appreciate. That for them, this is a temporary life that they are leading, that their real enjoyment comes in the afterlife, right? Where they, will have dozens of virgins if they die, for the cause and so on. You can't rationalize with somebody who is that deeply ingrained. And that's why you can't have Middle Eastern peace. The second that you allowed, right, Palestinian Authority to hook in with Hamas. Hamas just came in and they took the whole place over. His feeling is, well, if I throw everybody out and there is no more Palestinian Authority, well, then everybody leaves. That means Hamas is no longer here. Let them go to Jordan. Let them go to Egypt. Let them go to Iran. Let them go to Syria. Let them go to England. As long as, if you notice, while he was on the plane, they asked him if he intends to bring in some of the Gazans, some of the Palestinians to America. And he was very, very elusive in that answer. He doesn't give a shit what happens anywhere else, as long as it's not happening in his hotel or on his property. And by the way, my real question to you is, how do you even make something like this happen? It's not like Israel owns the Gaza, right? I mean, the same way you own your house. There are people that own their land there. So are you taking it via eminent domain? Are you going in with military and seizing the entire Gaza Strip? Israel doesn't own it within which to give it. So this whole thing just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, a lot of the decisions that are being made by this administration make no sense, Michael. This isn't logic. We're not dealing with logical people making logical decisions. I mean, he was speaking after the Super Bowl about how really it does make a lot of sense for Canada to be the 51st state. That is completely illogical. And as a Canadian, I'm an American immigrant. I am dual citizen, but as born and bred Canadian, I feel irate every time I hear him say that, because it's so incredibly disrespectful to an entire sovereign nation. But I don't think he cares about anybody else. And I think that you have to look at it like that. What I want, I get. Giant, and I'm sorry if you were ever friends, but giant spoiled baby who nobody ever told no. And we gave him endless power. It was a ridiculous move, a foolish move. And it's going to be a destructive move to so many people around the world. But there is a united front between people who want to rule like this. This is the Putins of the world and the Orbans and the Netanyahus. Netanyahu, there's no way he didn't have something to do with October 7th, that he didn't allow it in some ways to happen because he knew it would affect Biden the way it did, and he wanted Trump to win. There's a lot of people who are saying that. Yeah. There's no way that it wasn't. There's no way that his amazing intelligence just overlooked these people, that we're going to do this giant terrorist attack. There's no way. It's all connected, and we are fools to pretend it's not.
When your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic with no hesitation. You need it, and it's not something most guys can fix themselves. I know I can't. And men should think the exact same way about ED. But the reality is, you might be hesitant to seek help. Thankfully, through HIMSS, you can get access to personalized ED treatment without stepping outside the door. HIMSS is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. HIMSS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. You hear that? 95% cheaper. And the process, it's 100% online, so that there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. And with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMSS can help you find the ED option that works best for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, that's hims.com/Cohen. And the product mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified by safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
The question is not how could we have fixed it? How could it have been done differently? How are these leaders all working together? These authoritarian leaders, as Anne Applebaum, the writer for The Atlantic, calls authoritarian Inc. You know, these guys are all people that are working together like a corporation. They don't have any, methodology that they're going to use to work together. They don't all believe in the same thing, but they all believe in their own continued power and endless money. And they're working together to get it. And, who fights back if America's the bad guy? And that's where we are now.
Yeah. I've half my family lives in Toronto. My dad grew up in their University of Toronto, the whole 9 yards. And when I was speaking to my cousin the other day, he turned around and he goes, "It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." I mean, he goes, Trump is talking about how they'll pay lower taxes. He goes, yeah, but then we lose our identity in terms of who we are. So he goes, I'd rather pay, my higher tax rate, assuming you think it's a higher tax rate, than losing, who we are as a people. He goes, I'm kind of shocked that this is coming from America. But you want to talk about shocking and ridiculous nonsense? You got Vice President Vance is now out there openly claiming that the courts have no authority over the attorney general. I mean, literally suggesting that executive power is absolute. Talk about taking the Supreme Court decision, right, of absolute immunity to a whole new direction. I always knew that case was going to be problematic. I just didn't think it would be this problematic. And my question to you is, how dangerous do you think this rhetoric is? And you think it signals an authoritarian shift in the executive branch?
Of course. Of course. I mean, the thing is that, again, this is what they've said they've done and they were going to do. And this was always the plan. There is only one portrait hanging in Donald Trump's Oval Office, and it's Andrew Jackson, which is the one president who was like, yeah, I hear the Supreme Court told me to do this.
No, there's a portrait of Washington in there. I've been in the Oval Office.
I'm sorry, Washington. Well, yeah. Andrew Jackson has a pretty great spot right there.
Yep.
And Andrew Jackson, overlooked the Supreme Court and said, sure, they made their ruling, but let them enforce it. So this is the thing. You're already seeing this administration with Elon and what he's doing with all of our different different aspects of our government right now, from the Treasury right on down to the Consumer Protection Bureau that we were just talking about, bypassing the legislative branch. This is not their job. They don't get to say where the money goes. They don't get to say, oh, this money's been allocated for, FEMA, but we're going to take a look at it. Maybe they won't get it anymore. That is not the executive branch's job. The legislative branch's job is to do that. So they're already usurping the legislative branch. When JD put out that tweet saying, these courts shouldn't be able to tell us what we can and cannot do, they are now discussing usurping the judicial branch of the government. And there is a reason our courts are there. They are three co-equal branches of government. The legislative branch makes our laws, the executive branch enforces our laws, and the judicial branch tells us if those laws are constitutional or not. And the way that you make these decisions, what the president and the executive branch is doing right now with DOGE is unconstitutional. He is usurping the power of the legislative branch, and the judicial branch is holding him accountable to that. And JD's saying, who cares what they say? We don't need to listen to them. Why do we need to listen to them? We're the executive branch. And if you read people online who don't understand our Constitution and don't understand our system of government, you can see supporters of the president saying, that's right. That's right. JD's right. The president sits at the top of the pyramid and everyone's underneath him. And you say, no, our government is not a pyramid. It is a line in which they are all equal. There is no top of the pyramid. They all have co-equal jobs and they all act as a check on each other. Yep. Everyone's heard of checks and balances, and that's what this is supposed to be. So the executive branch is overstepping. The judicial branch is saying, yo, that's not your job. And JD is saying, what happens if we say, who cares? And that's the question. What happens if they say, who cares?
Well, the legislative branch they've just become neutered. I mean, and then the Republican legislators are just pathetic, where they're just willing to go along with anything because they don't want to be the next Adam Kinzingers or Liz Cheney's, where they get pushed out because somebody with Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or Bezos's wealth will fund a opponent against them. But I'll tell you,
let me ask you, Michael, let me ask you, because you know the Trump family well. I have been told by a lot of people, and I think that the Republicans are by nature cowards, by nature self-dealers, by nature looking out for what's best for them. But I've been told by a lot of people that a number of them are not just concerned for their jobs or their finances or the sweet deal they have insider trading that's legal if you're in Congress, but they're worried for their lives, that they're being threatened. And you can really see that in places where they know that they shouldn't be approving someone like R.F. Kennedy Jr. for HHS, that he's going to put the country in dire danger of diseases returning. And they're so sure of it. You hear them talking about it. And then all of a sudden they just flip and they go ahead and they do it. And I've been told that there are people that are genuinely worried about their lives, not just their jobs or their finances. And if that's the case, I feel like they should be coming out as a whole and saying, we're being threatened.
It's all finances. It's not about
You think it's just finances. Okay.
I'm sure.
You've been in that world.
You could build whatever castles that you want in your head about, oh my God, the MAGA's going to come after me. No.
So these are just self-servers. You're just saying they're self-dealers. They're not concerned.
Self-servers. Exactly. They want to remain in power, especially now, because under this administration, look, Trump has made over $6 billion since becoming the president-elect. Elon Musk, over $280 billion. Bezos has made, Zuckerberg is making. I mean, did you see the Super Bowl? They had an ad for Starlink. Starlink is another Elon Musk venture that's funded by the United States government that makes him, again, into the richest guy in the world. But I'll tell you what I think this is really all about.
Okay. When
J.D. Vance, who I don't think, as smart as he is, right, in terms of book smart, everything that he does and everything that he says is being scripted for him to do and to say. He doesn't have an original thought coming out of his mouth right now. I believe what he said is designed to lay the groundwork for Trump's administration to simply ignore any judicial ruling that comes out against them. Fuck it. We don't have to, well, I mean, just fuck it. We don't have to acknowledge it. We don't have to accept it. We just deny it outright. Why? Because, well, J.D. Vance said that the courts have no authority and that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, can do whatever she wants. That's what I think that they're doing. And I think it's nefarious and I think it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, no, it is. This is completely true. It is nefarious. It is unconstitutional. It is exactly what they are laying the tracks for, because why would you want to answer to the courts if you didn't have to? Why would you want to go through the legislative branch if you didn't have to? It's so much easier to be a dictator and do whatever you want and take whatever you want and earn whatever you want and be the richy riches and sit here on the top of the pile of money. That is way more appealing to a Trump-Vance situation. And I agree with you. Vance has never had an original thought. This is not a man who is a born leader. This is a man who was a born shell to be filled with whatever he thinks will serve him best in that moment. He went from being an anti-Trump guy to this liberal, leaning guy in Silicon Valley. And now he's like super MAGA. None of it makes any sense. He just said we should give the job back to the Doge baby, who is so racist specifically to Indian people. And the man is married to an Indian woman and has Indian children. And he's like, we should give this kid another chance. And I was like, wow. I mean, talk about having zero spine or removed through your mouth. It's pathetic. But I think the thing is, it's not just people. Like, what is happening here is a full blown, and it sounds innocuous to say a constitutional crisis. That doesn't mean anything to most people, right? Like, I watched the Super Bowl and I watched the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar. I just watched the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar. Let's be honest. I was not watching the freaking Super Bowl. But he had more guts in that show than most of our elected leaders, any former elected leader, Republican, Democrat, Independent, who swore an oath to protect this nation have had in the past 3 weeks. Because President Obama, President Bush, President Clinton, President Biden, any former Joint Chief of Staff, the leaders of the American military, General Brown, General Milley, General Dunford, General Dempsey, they all know what's happening. These people all understand what this administration is trying to set up. They understand that we are completely usurping the Constitution right now, that we are setting ourselves up for a giant takeover dictatorship. Where are they right now? Where are the State Department leaders, the American ambassadors, the secretaries of state? Where is Rex Tillerson and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and Condoleezza Rice right now? Like, where are the former heads of the FBI and the CIA, like Leon Panetta and John Brennan and Christopher Wray and James Comey? Like, where are all our former vice presidents? Where are the former speakers of the House? Because these people understand. They understand better than the regular American people what is happening right now. And I don't understand why these people who clearly understand that what we are looking at is a coup, that they clearly understand that what we're looking at is a takeover of the American government, who clearly understand that our courts, no matter how hard they work to stand up for the rule of law, are not going to be able to move fast enough to stop what's happening. And they will be completely without power if the administration just decides not to listen to them. I don't understand why they are not gathering together as a group of people saying, listen, we understand how this works. This is not constitutional. This is not how the American government works. We stand together. Why didn't they buy a $40 million ad during the Super Bowl to say what's happening right now is illegal? This man has no right to be doing this. Like, we're going to need people to find that kind of bravery.
First of all, they would never, because they would never have ever been able to buy it. It was, remember, shown on Fox, where you had Rupert Murdoch up there.
I know they can't buy it in the Super Bowl, but what I'm saying is, like, they should be on every single space they can saying the same thing as a united front. Because what are we supposed to do? Like, you're a podcaster right now. I'm a woman who stands in my kitchen most of the time breaking things down. The people that are on the street protesting, they're just citizens, right? There's only so much we can do if people don't understand how the government works. And someone needs to do it not by 2026, not by the midterms, by the summer, or we're going to not recognize the country we live in.
Yeah. And, we got to listen. A lot of people, they try to make fun of Trump. They call him stupid. He's a moron and so on. Let me tell you, to accomplish the complete unraveling of our country, the complete disregard for the tripartite system of government that you were describing, our Constitution, to basically pull this shit off. This is not stupidity. This is a well thought out game plan, Project 2025, that 922 page manifesto. They've managed to find the right guy within which to do it. And you know how they're actually accomplishing a lot of this? With these 62 executive orders that have been signed in just a period of like 3 weeks. It's overwhelming the courts.
I think there's over 200 executive orders at this point. It is bananas.
Right,
they are ruling by executive fiat.
Yeah. Yep. And these executive orders that they just signed, I meant 62 in just the last week. It's completely overwhelming the courts with various legal challenges. The other day, I saw my friend Norm Eisen who's on MSNBC, talking about 2 of the cases that he was successful in stopping, not completely, but getting injunctions to stop them from doing certain things. Okay, that's 2. But as you said, there's over 200 of these things. How do you think that Trump's usage of executive orders compares to past administrations? And what impact does this sort of breakneck pace have on legal stability and governance?
Well, this breakneck pace is not just a problem for legal stability and governance. This breakneck pace is meant to break the public as well. We can't possibly keep up with the amount of things that are happening. It's like a fire hose of information hitting us all the time. And anyone knows if you try and drink from a fire hose, it's going to hurt you. You can't take it in, so you just don't do it. People shut down. This is part of a tactic of authoritarian administrations to do so much at once that it shuts people down. Some people call it shock and awe. Some people call it the shock doctrine. But it's an overwhelming amount of things all at once, so nobody knows which thing to focus on. And it's a tactic used by authoritarian regimes. Now, I would push back on your idea that Trump is some brilliant man who did this. I think this time around, Trump surrounded himself with people who knew exactly what they were doing, who had been working for 40 years to get this done. The Heritage Foundation has been telling Republican leadership what to do for 40 years. I mean, more than half of what Reagan did was Heritage Foundation plans. Now we have the Heritage Foundation writing Project 2025. We have an administration that ran on lies that they had nothing to do with it, that they would never have anything to do with it, that they didn't know what we were talking about. I got into a huge fight on CNN with Scott Jennings when he was like, I can't believe the Democrats are still trying to push this 2025 lie that Trump has nothing to do with it. And I said, that's a lie, Scott, and you know it. And here we are watching them go down that list, check by check by check by check, getting every single one of those things done because we knew that's what they would do. This is in many ways what we were talking about with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is an empty vessel for whoever will get him where he wants to go, be that Peter Thiel, Donald Trump, whoever, right? Donald Trump is a vehicle in which to get people like the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, the things that they have actively worked on for 40 years. The first time around, Trump gave the Federalist Society all the judges they wanted, all the Supreme Court justices they chose. It was a deal that they made with each other to turn the courts. And the turning the courts was not some 2-year plan. It was a 40-year plan to undo the courts because they knew they could no longer win through the legislative branch. They weren't going to win hearts and minds based on their candidates, based on their ideas, based on what they were going to offer the people. So what they had to do was make sure that the laws that were passed that they didn't like were stopped by the courts. So they turned their attention to the courts, and Trump gave it to them for the first time around. Now, in the second Trump administration, in Trump 2.0, we have the Heritage Foundation making all the calls, making all the decisions. I don't think Trump cares left, right, or center if we're a super Christian nation or if we are, if we have this, that, or the other thing. These things don't matter to him. It's not him that made a list of words that we shouldn't have in any government document. It's not him that wants women necessarily back in the kitchen. It's not him that wants us to be a Christian nation that follows, the doctrine of where women are supposed to be and where minorities everybody should be. This is a long-term plan by people who wanted to turn back women's rights, turn back civil rights, turn back workers' rights, and turn us back into some sort of Gilded Age where there were certain people, specifically white, straight Christian men, who had all the power and everyone else got in line. And that's what we're seeing through the vehicle of Donald Trump.
Yeah, listen, again, people can say whatever they want about the guy, right, in terms of his intelligence. Maybe because nobody else ever wanted to do something like this before, because America's democracy is sort of like the beacon on the hill that the whole world should want to emulate. But for whatever the reason is, Heritage, who, yes, they wrote this, it's the guy Vaught, the guy who's now in the administration. I mean, they wrote this manifesto and he's managing to push it through. And you're 100% correct. When you turn around and you say, Trump doesn't give a shit about Roe versus Wade. He doesn't care about women's rights. He doesn't care about white Christian nationalism or the evangelical community. I was there, during the whole time. This is all a means to an end. The means is taking full control. And he said in his campaign that he intends to rewrite the Constitution. He intends to destroy our tripartite system of government. He intends to strip the legislative and the judiciary of their co-equal power and confer all power to himself. And why? Because it's easier to run the country when you don't have to argue, as he did the first time around, with the legislative branch or have the judiciary tell you, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, Ezra Klein just said on one of his podcasts that Trump is acting like a king because he's too weak to act like a president. He can't get things passed through Congress. So he's signing all these executive orders and hoping we don't understand that the American government doesn't work like that. But people need to come out and say that. And it can't just be random court cases. Like you said, you had a friend who had 2 cases out of 200,
Yep.
Right? We need people to be using their collective influence. And I'm talking about people in power, not just citizens on the streets, to say that you can't do this. You don't have the power. It's not allowed. It's not normal. This isn't how America works. And that's why I want to see leader to leader saying that, because these people made a promise to protect our nation, to protect its people, to protect the Constitution. Yep. And whether they're in power now, clearly the man who is in power now doesn't care about any of that. He didn't care about that oath. This is why he didn't put his hand on any Bible. He doesn't care about anything except himself. And that's how he is going to run the country. And that is how the people that have surrounded him are going to allow him to run the country, because they can push their agenda in the meantime.
The funniest part is that the ones who are really pushing it the hardest are those that have absolutely nothing in this country. They really are the most financially disenfranchised individuals. You don't have really a middle class that's following Trump. You have the lower, the uneducated, and then you have the uber rich. And there's only like a couple hundred of those, but they control over 80% of the country's wealth. But going back to these lawsuits, I was telling you about these Democratic attorneys. They've already filed these multiple lawsuits, challenging, as an example, Doji's access to federal financial systems. And, these lawsuits are predicated on the actions are violative of longstanding regulations. Now, the first thing that Trump and Musk and those that are around them, right, they turn around and they say is, who gives a shit what you think about longstanding regulations? The regulations didn't work, which is why our country is in such a terrible mess, even though we're really not. He's convinced people that we are. Every now and then, we're reminded of those many healthy resolutions that we've made over the years, like to lose weight, to exercise more, to eat better. But a goal without a plan, well, it's a plan that's destined to fail. Prolon's 5-day program, it gives you the tools to put your health goals into action with a science-backed plan that makes it easy to stay focused and to achieve real results. Prolon's fasting mimicking diet, well, it's a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes the body while making cells believe that they're fasting. Researched and developed for decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by leading US medical centers, Prolon helps support healthy blood sugar, enhanced skin appearance, fat loss, and improved energy and focus post-fast. Now, it all starts with their 5-day program. Snacks, soups, and beverages, all designed to keep your body in a fasting state. No guesswork and no planning required. 3 consecutive cycles of Prolon have been shown to reduce your biological age score by an average of, get a load of this, 2.5 years. And your waist circumference, by 1.5 inches. Prolon is fasting with food. That's right. It's fasting, but with food. It all starts with Prolon's 5-day program. Again, snacks, soups, beverages, all designed to make your body think that it's fasting. So let me be clear. I did the 5-day program and I feel much better. Prolon, really, it's not like any other diet that I've tried. Because you know why? It's not a diet. It's truly science. I mean, it was convenient. They sent me everything that I needed all in one box. To help you kickstart a health plan that truly works, Prolon is offering Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen listeners 15% off. You hear that? 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. So go now and visit prolonlife.com/mea culpa. That's PROLONLIFE.com/mea culpa to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. That's prolonlife.com/mea culpa. Go there now. The question I really have is, what legal standings do you think that these challenges have? And how do you think that they're going to impact Musk's role in government operations? You think finally Congress can intervene, maybe even shut Doge down? I mean, Doge is really operating as a phantom government. And ultimately what will happen is, as Elon Musk gets more and more powerful and they start putting out more and more of these articles about Elon Musk actually being the true president, sitting behind, the Resolute desk in the White House and so on, that's the sort of shit that gets under Trump's skin, right? Because that's what happens when, you are the id, the ego, and the super ego all smashed into one. That's when you're going to see a breakout, a real breakdown in the relationship, in this bromance take place.
Well, listen.
But what do you think happens in the interim?
In the end, this is a mess. It's why we need to show alternative leadership on some level, because there's no way, as much damage as Elon's going to do, and Elon has no business doing what he's doing. He has no business in the Treasury Department. He has no business in the Department of Defense. He has no business in these organizations. He shouldn't be there. The fact that they're locking the door to Congress members for the Department of Education, what the hell is Elon doing there? Elon and his little baby bros, what are they doing there? They have no business being there. And people say, well, they're just doing an audit. And you're like, if they're doing an audit, they would have hired accountants, not programmers, right? So what's happening right now is a complete theft of our information, potentially our money. We don't know what is happening. And it is a complete shutdown of our government. Now, the question becomes, like you're saying, you have this Time magazine cover with Elon sitting behind the Resolute desk. That is not going to fly well with Trump long term.
Nope.
But look at Trump's cabinet. I mean, Trump's cabinet is something like $480 billion worth of wealth in one room, right? Biden's cabinet was like $118 million collective worth. This is $480 billion. That's ludicrous, right? These are all people who think they are king of the world. Imagine these people coming head to head with each other. Who's getting the best thing? Who's getting the best deal? Who's in charge? And then at the top, you have King Trump, who thinks that everything should come to him. And he's easy to take advantage of. He's easy to manipulate. And Elon gave Trump the ability to be king of America. He bought this election for him. But Elon wants to be king of the world. And that is something we should be watching out for. That is something, Elon has much bigger plans. He just needed America to do it. And that's what we need to be looking out for. I think Trump should be watching his back if I was being realistic.
Yeah, well, look, since he's not an elected official, anything, God forbid would happen to our president, you end up with Shady Vance as the new crowned leader. And that's even more dangerous because he actually has an ideology, and as warped as it might be, it's, believe it or not, it's worse than Trump. It's worse than Trump simply because Trump doesn't believe it, right? And so he doesn't give a shit. Just make it happen. I don't care. Figure it out. But J.D. Vance actually believes a lot of the things that we're seeing taking place, and he believes in Project 2025. I'll tell you something that really shocked me and angered me when I started seeing some of the folks that are in Elon Musk's Doge team. You have one kid who's there who's 19 years old. He just graduated high school. Now, you have a 19, I don't give a shit how smart he is. I don't care if he's the next Elon Musk. I don't care if he's the next, Albert Einstein. I don't care. He's 19 years old and he lacks any legitimate sophistication for having access to our entire federal financial system. Imagine what happens with the information that he gathers. Imagine what happens if one of or more of our adversaries ends up sending in a honeypot within which to trap him and to provide information. I mean, this is no disrespect to the kid. This doesn't look like a kid who's seen any action so far. So you send some Instagram model, right, to play up to him and gets him to start releasing personal information on individuals. Now, as somebody who has had this happen to them twice, Leigh, I had this happen to me twice. The first time was by an IRS agent by the name John Fry from San Francisco, who went on to the FinCEN system. And to my listeners, that's the Financial Crimes Network, the most guarded financial system in our government. That's how they catch drug dealers, money launderers. That's how terrorists moving money around. This guy, John Fry, went onto the system, downloaded all my information, including a couple of other Michael Cohens, two others, one from Israel and one from Canada, and he gave it to Michael Avenatti, who then gave it to Ronan Farrow, who wrote about it. Now, I'm saying to myself, and I went after this guy. I was incarcerated at the time. And the punishment they gave this guy, John Fry, was 1 year probation for going onto the system that says if you log on to this for improper purpose, that it is punishable by up to 5 years of imprisonment. Meanwhile, about a month or so ago, I got this document in the mail from the United States District Court for the District of Columbia of the United States against a guy named Charles Edward Littlejohn. I'm saying to myself, get the fuck out of here. It's happened to me again? How is it that government allows my information and others so easily to be taken? This piece of shit, Littlejohn, from the year of 2018 until 2020, again, that was the Trump administration, while defendant was working on an IRS contract, stole tax returns and return information associated with public official A, we don't know who that person is, and thousands of other of the nation's wealthiest people, including returns and return information dating back more than 15 years. He then disclosed the tax information associated with that public official A to news organization 1 and the other tax information to news organization 2. Both news organizations published numerous articles describing the tax information that they obtained from the defendant. Imagine, and this is when there were some safeguards. Imagine what happens now. What do we do to protect ourselves from an administration that has already stated that they intend to seek retribution against individuals that they deem critics?
Yeah. I mean, look, when that happened to you, there were some safeguards. I would say there were lots of safeguards. I would say you were targeted by this same administration that is now targeting anybody who they don't like, anybody that spoke out against them, anybody that they want to target. And I don't even think we need these, these boys that haven't even fully formed their prefrontal cortex and have no security clearance, who are in all of our most private information, to have a honeypot come and find them. I think they'll do whatever Elon tells them to do. He's the richest man in the world. They're acolytes to his billionaire bro religion, and they'll do whatever he wants. He's got a bunch of people that are only loyal to him, doing whatever he wants. If Elon wants that information to go to Russia, if Elon wants that information to go to China, it's going. Our information is going. And each one of us can be targeted. And that's why people in America need to understand how in danger we all are from this behavior, and why we need things like the courts to be standing up for us right now and saying, get your freaking mitts off of our stuff. That needs to be happening right now. And we should be supporting the courts as they say that, because sure, if you want to overturn the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, knock yourself out, go through Congress, do it, make an argument. I'm sure that Mike Johnson will give you everything you want, but do it the legal way. And then we'll say, okay, well, I guess that's the way it was. But no, they're not doing that. They are literally stealing from us right now. And every American person needs to understand that, because every American person is just as in danger as you are from these ludicrous lawsuits and things that will take us all down. So we shut the hell up.
Yeah. Well, Leigh, let me thank you for joining and making us all smarter today. I'm confused with, I really am. I'm just confused with why the American people are refusing to listen to reality, to logic. Instead, they just accept, own, regurgitate the nonsense day in and day out, until ultimately it hits them in their home, in their pocket, or wherever. Maybe then things will change. But by then, what scares me is it'll be too late.
Yeah. Well, we really need to get people to remember and see before it is too late.
Well, Leigh, thank you for joining us. Truly appreciate you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Michael.
Keep up the good fight.
You too.
Keep up the good fight.